Hey there, good evening everybody. Hare Krishna. Sorry we're a little bit late for tonight's presentation. We're going to be interviewing live Radha Krishna, my friend. He is a very senior spiritual practitioner. He's been practicing spiritual life since the early 70s. He's here already, although I'm still introducing him. He'll be there now. Jumping in. Fantastic.
Hello. Oh, yes. Got a connection.
Here we go. Fantastic. You're here. Welcome.
Hi. So, good to
Okay, I
be
was
in
just doing a
touch
little
with you guys.
introduction for you, Radha Krishna, just for those people who don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can expand upon you can tell us who you are as well. So I was saying that you've been involved in Krishna consciousness since, I think you told me 1971, is that right?
74.
74.
70,
Okay.
yeah.
And you're very much involved with agriculture. You are the director of Good Gardeners International, which is an international charity dealing with agriculture, composting, simple living, giving back to the earth, permaculture, no dig technology. And you are a veritable source of so much information on this topic. I know you teach in colleges and you sell and provide these composting systems and compost to people all over the world, not just in England, in Africa and in India. So thank you so much for joining us, Radha Krishna. I'm very happy to have you here. Radha Krishna is my great friend. He's always been so helpful in so many different ways in different projects that I've been involved with, like Plant and Be Happy when we were planting many trees at the manor a year and a bit ago. So Radha Krishna, maybe we can just start. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved with Krishna consciousness, how you got involved with agriculture, because I've heard that you've done many different businesses in the past. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your background, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I came across the devotees chanting in Oxford, in the town of Oxford, where I was living at the time. And it was Bhakti Chaitanya Swami now, and Gokulananda. I remember, and I think Janaka Raj, and they had a kirtan dancing along the street, and I thought I was there, and I thought I was with some friends. I can be free too, so I joined them at the back, and I was dancing along behind them. And then it all started from there. They gave me a BTG, I gave a donation, they gave the India album, and I took that away, and I was fascinated with the chanting on there, and wrote to the temple in the manor. They sent me the little book, um, Perfection of Yoga, because I was studying yoga, and
Hmm.
was it for me. Yeah,
And then what happened? You joined the temple, or
I went up there and knocked on the door, and Vishnu Maharaj opened the door, and I'd been previously to the Buddhist temple in Oxford and knocked on the door there, and nobody answered. So I went away and knocked on the door at the temple, and the door opened. Vishnu Maharaj said, "Come on in, come on in," and that was it. I never left. I never went away.
wow, that's amazing. And that was 1974.
Yeah, yeah. And
And then
Mukunda,
how?
there was only a few devotees there, and Mukunda was there with Petita Dharan in the reception. And I spent half the afternoon trying to pronounce the name Prabhupada, and they were laughing, and it was really good. When I joined, they got me in the office, Mukunda and Petita Dharan. I was in the office. There was 3 desks in there, and they trained me up writing letters to new people, and I ran the book room. They got me in the book room, which is the theatre now, and that was
Mm.
full of books, right to the ceiling, with Krishna books that came from Japan, and all the Bhagavatams and everything. And I was writing the letters to many devotees who came along subsequently, and it was very nice. And they got me into the BBT, and I trained up with Satsvarup Maharaj, running the BBT library party.
Wow. Did you went on the library party, did you?
Yeah, they said come to India to meet Satsvarup Maharaj. So we went overland to India on Hansaduta's bus program, starting from
Wow.
Germany, and then we went there, did the training with Satsvarup Maharaj, and went to America. Then we flew to America, and I was the van driver, office man for the BBC Library Party, Kalakanta, Mahabudhi, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, like that.
Mahajuti Maharaj.
Yes, no, Mahajuti wasn't on our program. It was those three or four people, Mahabudhi, Kalakanta, Bhakti Tirtha Swami. I remember those three and myself. And we were
Okay.
going universities, and all over, down Mississippi, up the East Coast. Amazing. Back to New York Temple with Satsvarup Maharaj, incidentally.
Wow. And that Mukunda that you were mentioning, that's Mukunda Maharaj, right?
Yeah, he was. I had no idea until just reading Guru Das's book how he was one of the main instigators of the whole movement in the UK. And all the time I was with him in England and all the stuff he gave me, he even gave me the Bhagavatam that Prabhupada gave him, one of the original first cantos. He never said any of that. He never told me anything about it. He never said publicly, he never lectured about it. So humble. And now I'm reading Guru Das's book. It's all in there about how the original team went over to London. Absolutely fascinating. And I've got to write to him about this because I owe him so much. He trained me up, and it all started from there. I didn't find out anything about agriculture in ISKCON until 1995
Hmm.
because I'd come from agricultural college in Henley, which was near George Harrison's house. And I went along to his house. There's a whole story about that. But keeping to the path tonight, I discovered the works of Sir Albert Howard in 1995 because one devotee took me to Y College in Kent. He said, you must come down to this college and look in the reference library at this man's work.
That's just down the road for me. That's like 10 minutes from me. Why?
Is it? Well, it used to
Yeah.
be. It's been sold to London University, I think. It's part of
Oh, the
another.
college.
Yeah, and it's closed down. But in there, we found a book, and I picked it up because this other devotee was into farming as well. So he took me there, and I picked up the first book in the reference library, and it was this one, and we rewrote it. I rewrote it. It's this book. You can see that. And we
Yeah.
rewrote it, and this is the book that the whole thing's been based on since 1995. And we went to India. We tested it in England, the system at the manor, and it was so amazing, the whole story about that, that I saved up the money and went to India in 96. 96, 95, 96, to rewrite the book because it hadn't been released for 100 years. And it was so positive and so fascinating, the results, that I became gripped by it. And then later read in Ranshaw's book that it said, Shastra says, you shall not throw into water blood, pus, stool, or urine. And that made me think, oh, this is Shastric. This system that Howard's doing is exactly that. And it's Shastric. So I pursued it till the year dot, until now. I'm still on it because we're selling the compost. We've got courses. We've got people from Glastonbury ordering the system where I just spent 6 weeks, etc.
So that system, can you explain a little bit about it, how old it was? You said it wasn't practiced for 100 years. So maybe you can just give a little bit of the history of the system that you're practicing and propagating.
Yes, Howard did this in India in the 20s and 30s and wrote his book in 1931, released his book in 1931. But it wasn't really done after that in England because the chemical industry had become so strong. He writes that in books that the chemical industry sort of sidestepped him, and he was, as they say, sort of swept into obscurity. And all his works were. So I've lectured to the Soil Association on this, and they don't even know who Howard is. When I rang them up, they didn't know who Sir Albert Howard was. He was the cause of the formation of the Soil Association. In the back of the office, one lady said, "Oh, I know who he is." And so it started from there. And then they invited me to speak on Howard. And Prince Charles gives a Howard Memorial lecture every year. And I did one year when he didn't do it, and sent in the transcript. And he was very much appreciative of that. So it's gone on, and he is a great authority on agriculture, as you may have heard through permaculture. In the permaculture books, the introduction, the preface says Albert Howard, you know, as one of the mentors of Bob, whoever it was who did the permaculture books. He had read Howard's books, you see. So that's how I've stuck with it, because, you know, we have to follow authority. We have to find an authority. And when you find a good authority, you stick with it, follow the instructions, and you get good results.
And what he's propagating, was that even older than what he was practicing? Did that have its roots in India and in the Vedas? Or?
Yeah, well, he discovered the works of King. And this is on our video, which we have called the Barefoot Servant series, which is about a 2-hour video, which is available on online. It's on YouTube. He discovered the works of King, who wrote a book in 1926 called, his book was called Farmers of 40 Centuries, right? That's 4,000 years. Now that book is very rare. It's still available in the British Library, but I got hold of that book, and Howard, in that book, he researched that book, and King had been to China, Korea, and Japan in the early part of that last century, and discovered that they were doing this system, which had come from China. It was revealed in China, because China had walls, great walls around the cantons, and that kept out the marauders, and so the culture had been preserved. Whereas in India, they'd been invaded many times, you know, temples were chopped in half, and the lower, you know, and all this business, and they lost a lot of the culture. And deities had to be buried, as we know from Lord Chaitanya's time, and all that sort of thing. So this culture was still prevalent in China, and King had discovered it, wrote his book, Howard had discovered his book, and trialed his system. I found Howard's book and trialed his system, and here it is today. And it's amazing, because nobody knows about it. I haven't met one university in 25 years of work on this who knows anything about this system. It's unbelievable, because you'd think universities would be into research and finding out how things work. So for whatever reason, they haven't. And it seems to override all the work they're doing, in that we can stop all manner of pests and disease in agriculture. We don't need to dig the soil. There's no ploughing required. And by doing that, you increase the biodiversity of the soil to such a degree that you get 300 to 500% increase in crop. Without doing all the work that normal agriculture says you have to do. So anyone can do this. You don't need to be an agricultural student. That's the miraculous thing. All you need to do is follow the instruction manual with this system, and you get the most incredible fertility, which the Chinese were doing. It's dated in that book by King 4,700 years ago. What's 4,800 years now? So that's Vedic. That's back to the previous Yuga. So that's what's so amazing about it. It's actually a Vedic technology, which is all encompassing. It deals with all the problems. They say if you have one Vedic solution to a problem, it will solve many problems, right? Whereas a solution in the Western world creates many other problems. They have a solution for one thing, but it creates other problems. But a Vedic technology is all encompassing. So it seems it covers everything, solves everything. That's how I'm seeing this agricultural system.
Thank you, Bruce. So we've heard a little bit about the history of it and where it comes from and the different teachers of it. So maybe you can explain, what is it exactly? What is the system and how is it different than how things are generally done?
Well, by recycling waste, on-farm waste, household waste, all the waste streams that are prevalent in society today, large kitchens, food processing factories, like that, gardening waste, animal waste, fodder waste, bedding waste from cows. This is what it forms the fertility, and putting it through this system, the HH2 system, which we have the manual is here.
Mm-hmm.
Manual here. You get the right fungi and bacteria, and you can produce crops like this on any soil type, for any crop type. It's just a massive increase with no pest and disease. We've been doing it for 25 years and haven't found any problems. So we're taking it to Africa. Save the Children, indeed, have ordered the system for Mozambique, in 3 locations. So that's after lockdown and everything, that will probably carry on. They've got an MOU out with us now on that. So some people can see the validity in this. In fact, the job of a Brahmin is to be able to, two jobs of a Brahmin is, 1, employ qualified people, and 2, speak the truth, speak the truth, avoiding politics. So if we can do that, and we've got knowledge from Howard, then we've got a solution to a lot of problems in agriculture.
Why, what are the problems that they're experiencing in modern agriculture that this can solve?
Well, I write to the Farming Today program. I was on that radio show about GM some time ago, and they have so many problems. Flea beetle in oilseed rape, they can't even stop that, and they've lost 80% of the harvest in the UK. The farmers are due to go out of business. I keep writing to, they don't believe you. They don't believe you. This is the problem, because they don't think that you could have such a simple solution as a soil amendment to stop all these problems. But that's how simple it is. It's not all about new varieties. Howard wrote that 100 years ago. It's not all about new varieties. It's about soil conditions as well. So that's where they're going wrong. They just think you've got to reinvent, come up with new varieties, all this GM technology. But in fact, if the soil's dead, nothing's going to grow anyway. So that's the situation we're facing. The soils of the world are dying very fast. This is creating havoc in food supply systems. It affects mental, physical health, as the government of England have now recognized. Mental health is greatly affected by proper nutrition, which is what this food gives you, because it's grown in a particular way that makes it different from ordinary food.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you're saying that, I mean, my kind of feeling, you're the expert, but my feeling is that in terms of fertility and in terms of agriculture, in terms of growing things and having quality food, which is important for our own makeup and our own sanity, is giving back to the soil, right? Like, for me, it seems like the mentality of the Western world is we just exploit as much as we can, try and get as much result as we can from as little effort as possible. And the modern methods are, forget the people, forget the animals, we just use machines. We do as big agriculture as possible. We spray chemicals over the fields and pesticides to kill the bugs. And then we don't understand why things aren't sustainable. But your system is all about using nature, using natural waste from nature to give back to the soils, right? To give it back fertility.
Yeah, it's about being holistic. It's holistic science. So everything involved with it affects the next thing. So that's what modern agriculture doesn't do. They spray to kill bugs. but they kill beneficial bugs. You see, it kills life in the soil. So that's the problem with Western agriculture, and they don't see that it actually is holistic. The answer is holistic. And for instance, in the cowshed, you try and mechanize it, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You have to extract the cow dung and the straw and the earth from under the cows, which all cows like to lie on, in a certain way. As we ran in Mayapur in 1996, we ran the Goshala there for 6 months. We did this system, and it worked so well. We had approval from all the senior sannyasis in ISKCON, and it worked wonderfully. That's how we wrote the book. We wrote the book there in Mayapur, and it's yet to be practiced in a big way in ISKCON, or some places are doing it. We did a lecture on it, a film series in Radha about 15, 20 years ago. And, you know, they had a few cows. They had 4 cows or so. So when you start a cow project, the thing is you must start on the right foot. And the right foot is with people. You see, the Goshalas in the Vedas were run by the Gopis and the Gopas, right? In our Krishna book. And they knew the Gopis knew all the secrets of how to benefit society by cow protection. So this is very interesting. This means that if you study it, you will find out there are so many benefits. And if you do it right, if you do it manually, you will be able to separate these ingredients and produce this type of fertility that is so astounding. You can sell it on eBay, and it affects it can transform any soil type for any crop type. And that's why we're still selling it, because people are still buying it. And it's a premium price. So even something that's 5,000 years old is now relevant today. This is a fascinating thing, because you'd think everything's out of date now. Modern agriculture thinks nothing before 1960 is worth talking about. But that's how wrong they are, in our view. The Vedic system is a reality because it's there in Shastra for us, and it's worked by people. As soon as you mechanize it, it doesn't get the same results. It doesn't work because it's not a mechanized system. A Goshala is a personal system which works on cows and people. And that's the way it's going to succeed. If you go to machines, then you get pollution, you get too much of it, you have a waste product you don't want, and you can't get rid of it. And it causes leachate, kills other things. In India, we saw the runoff from the Goshala kill the entire nursery bed of rice that they had. So if you do this right, there's no runoff, there's no pollution, there's only fantastic fertilizer. So any cow project has to start on the right foot. That's been my interest with the new purchase of land in Leicester, because if that's going to become a cow protection project, let's start on the right foot so that we never get a pollution problem, we never get foot rot in the cows, we don't get unhealthy animals, because they'll be supremely healthy because you put this material onto their grass. And that's how you get the super long clover, long, huge clover grass, which the cows really like. The fresh grasses with herbs in the ley and everything. Absolutely fantastic. We did this at our Well End farm we had that farm for 9 years. And it was run based on a CSA, very successful. And it was all devotees, because we put the advert in 3 papers to have people join the CSA, which is Community Supported Agriculture. And the only people who joined were devotees. So we thought, well, this is great. And it became a devotee project. Guru Das visited us. Various different people over the years. Lokanath Swami, he came, I knew him from India years and years before. And Bhakti Tirtha Swami invited me to his yatra over in America to do the same thing there. And like that. So, you know, it was well received by senior people in ISKCON. Yeah.
So cows are an important part of this HH2 system?
Well, the cow has the most beneficial dung of any animal, in that it has more organisms than any other species, by having 3 stomachs. And this means that it has a purifying, not only a purifying effect, but a huge micro organism population. So this facilitates, done in the right way, the nematodes that we've discovered that are in the system. And this is what stops the slug snails in the pests in the crops. So Howard didn't know what nematodes were because he didn't have microscope that powerful, I believe, at that time. But they had those results. So we found from research that it is nematodes that are doing this. And there's no other product on the market that has nematodes in it, which are naturally there. And they'll stay in your soil if you just keep it damp. Nematodes don't mind the cold. They like the damp. They don't like the heat and the dry. They'll die. So it's all about moisture in the soil, and humus, which is what our fertilizer is. It's actually fresh humus. It holds its own weight, 20 times its own weight in water. So this is a fact that came from the Oxford Real Farming Conference in Oxford. It's on every year. We went one year with 5 devotees, and we sold out of the books. We had a book table there. We sold out of books, and the room was fully packed with people at the door. They couldn't get in. So it was very well received, and they've actually offered me to do another one after some years because, you know, if something works, you should do it again.
Yeah. And I mean, I've got so many questions. Like today, the live we're doing, we've got 2 people who are watching now, and it's less than we usually have. Not by many. Usually, like, there's 6 or 7 people watching. It's like for agriculture, it's not a very glamorous subject. You know, if we were talking about sex, or if we were talking about, I don't know, some pop star or whatever, even meditation or yoga, more people would be watching. So when you're dealing with this, when you're, you know, talking about composting and, you know, agriculture, then what's the response like? Because I also feel like in these days, agriculture has been taken out of our hands. You know, it's been taken up by big companies, and, you know, small independent farmers struggle to make a living. Like, I know we have one dairy farm here. They have 700 acres and 500 cows, and the price that they get for their milk is extremely low unless they sell it independently and they find a market and they deliver it. So it seems like agriculture and farmers are something that's really been marginalized and really kind of, you know, disempowered. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, the subsidy system is what does that. And we came up against that in Mayapur, whereas they wanted to subsidize the price of our milk. And I said, no, we won't be subsidized. This is the cost of the milk, so this is what everyone has to pay. And then this is what you have, this is what you should have, which is a food-based economy, right? A food-based economy, not a political-based economy or an economic-based economy. It should be a food-based economy. So that's your system. And what makes this so exciting, whereas people think, oh, agriculture is such hard work, digging all the weeds, you know, and all this stuff. I've got to know all this stuff. You can do endless courses on agriculture. You don't need any of that, in my view, at all. You start making this stuff and you sell it. The college we were teaching this at in Watford was saying, the students said, oh, since we've been doing this course, we've learnt more about economics than we have on our economics course. Because things are so complicated in the modern world. This is very simple. And no one's got a comparative fertilizer, pesticide, soil conditioner all in one. So this is very easy to do. We've got many centers in ISKCON in Spain, in Germany, interested people all over. And we just have to expand. We've got more people we're training to go and teach this system. Because any temple can do it, any devotees can do it, any community, and it's based on waste. And waste is one of the biggest problems the world is facing because they don't know what to do with it. It's always tipped away somewhere, ends up in the water, or it gets burnt, and all the rest of it. Whereas if you do this, you're turning it into the biggest carbon sink there is. This sinks more carbon into the soil than the planting of trees. Yeah. So it's a really wonderful system. And sinking carbon, we know, is a good thing. It creates worm life, you see, which modern agriculture ignores. Worms don't exist. You know, in Mozambique, we went to the university farm, and there's a group of us going there. I went with an NGO from Norway who took me over there to 3 countries in Africa because they'd been to our farm and they liked what we were doing. So we got to the site of the university farm, and the professor turned around. He said, "Oh, you said you were bringing your equipment, your soil testing equipment." I said, "Yeah, it's him. It's him over there with the spade." I said, "Go and dig a hole there. Go and dig a hole there. Go and dig a hole there." And they did. And we went to each hole and there were no worms. I said, "That's your problem. Very simple. You've got no worms because they've all been killed by sulfate of ammonia." That is a fact. Sulfate of ammonia, the basic ingredient in chemical fertilizer, kills earthworms. So if that's your premise, it's like a bad mathematical calculation. If you get the first thing wrong, your conclusion is going to be way out. It's going to be a failure. So that, in our view, in the sustainable agriculture view, worms are one of the main ingredients in sustainable farming. So they were fascinated with this, and they said, "Right, okay, now what's our next step?" I said, "Well, we've got to come back with this equipment, set it up for you, and train people how to use it, because then you can scale it up for a large farm. You can use it for many different uses, for different waste streams. We've even used it as a sanitation system, which you can do, and then you put the end product, which is pathogen free, in 30 days on trees, whatever, like that."
It's like a compost toilet kind of thing, right?
We have a toilet that goes with it on our website, which is ggi.org.uk. There are the products that we sell, and one of those is a compost toilet that comes from Africa, actually, because it's already there, and we've just adapted our system into it, so we don't have to manufacture it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a dry toilet. It's a dry toilet. It's far superior to, I have to say, Joe Jenkins' system of humanure, which you have to leave for 2 years because it may not be safe. But our system works in 90 days. So it's 4 times quicker and produces a safe product, you know, which is tested by hospitals, doctors, universities, and they all come out with no pathogens found at the end of the processing period. So I think it's got a lot of mileage, and the fertilizer market of the world, incidentally, is a massive figure. If you Google it, the fertilizer market of the world, and they're all having a problem with failing fertilizers. Like they've got aflatoxin poisoning in Africa, which has killed 250,000 people in Africa. That's a poison in the soil, which is coming from infertile soil. So the bad fungi override anything else and infect the maize crop, cassava crop, like that. And people are dying from this poisoning. And peanut butter, for instance, is exported mostly from Africa. If it gets in there, they have to test batches of peanut butter. It could get to the West. So it's a big problem. It's a very big problem. The dying soils of the world. And that's why I think Save the Children, which is the largest charity in the world, have really taken this on board and think it's wonderful.
So fascinating, Radha Krishna. I knew having you on here would be really a mine of interesting information. For me, one of the most interesting things is when we're talking about food and when we're talking about agriculture and cows, then for me, it seems like this is the real explanation of economics and an economic system. And, you know, what is actually valuable? How can we have a holistic situation where what we're using as consumers is put back in a cycle that can actually, you know, give back to the world? So you mentioned this point about we need a food-based economy, not an economy-based economy or like a politics-based economy. Because, I mean, economy means that which is valuable, really, doesn't it? I mean, it doesn't mean printing money. It doesn't mean whatever commodity people like, at the moment, whether it's Nike trainers or whether it's mobile phones or whether it's whatever it may be, cars. It's
Yeah.
that which has intrinsic value. And that which
Yes,
has intrinsic value is food, basically. That's the most valuable thing, right?
Prabhupada's main message on this is real value is land and cows.
Mm.
And on his last visit to the West, he got as far as London, and he said, "I'm coming to the West. I'm coming back to the West to show you how to live off the land."
Mm.
So Prabhupada knew a lot of things about this from his childhood. For instance, in Calcutta, where he was a medical student, Howard was working in Calcutta.
Mm.
And he knew, I have a paper on this, and it's about a place called Tollygunge. And Prabhupada knew about this, and he recommended this system should be used in Vrindavan and at the time. And I went to Calcutta, and
So
Howard
who recommended that? Howard or Prabhupada?
So Prabhupada said that,
Oh,
but he knew about this process because Howard was doing this in Calcutta at that time. And I went to the Calcutta municipality, and his giant oil painting portrait is still on the wall there. And
wow.
I thought, oh, that's Howard. I'm sure that's Howard. And I took a photo, and I went click. And then every corridor was seething with people around me. Why are you taking photo? You cannot take photo in here. And they took me into the mayor's office, got my camera, opened the camera, pulled out all the film, and said, right, you can go now.
Why can't you take a picture of Howard?
Well, not in India, not allowed in a public building, apparently. Photographs aren't on. So that was my attempt to get a picture of this painting of Howard. But he sympathized, he was a very pious man, he sympathized with the Indian vegetarian diet. He could see the products that came from cow protection. And in his books, he writes so many things about the value of the cow. And he said that you should take all the cow dung from India, right, and use 1/4 of it for making fertilizer and 3/4 of it for fuel,
Fuel.
right? Yes, fuel. So you dry the cow patties. We did this in Bengal.
Oh, biogas.
No, just dried cow patties on the walls. They stick them on the walls of the
Oh,
house.
for cooking, for cooking. Uh-huh.
Yeah, you see them. There's two sizes. There's a gutty, which is, I think, a smaller one, and then there's a larger one. But when you dry it out, it burns a very hot temperature, which is what's needed for vegetarian cooking. Howard writes about this. So this should be done on a massive scale, obviously in India and anywhere where there's cows, because it will stop the cutting of wood, which we haven't achieved ourselves, unfortunately. At each festival, mountains of wood come in. But cow dung could be the replacement for that, because it's totally green. And it burns with a nice flame, and it's a very good heat for cooking the vegetarian diet on. So that's completely sustainable. And there's many books on the effects of cow dung. You put it on the walls of the houses. It keeps the snakes in the floors. It keeps the snakes out of huts and houses like that. It's got a huge amount of benefits to humanity, cow dung. So there we are. We should look into this more and more. And we wanted to sell it. They sell cow dung soap in Vrindavan. And I was there in 2018, and I said, why don't we sell this product in your shop? And they said, oh, we'd love to sell it. And they've got so many cows in Vrindavan. The goal is to go back there. Now they've got a new Goshala with a school on the same property, and teach this system, turn the cow dung into this material you can sell, and it will make a lot of money for the temple. Because everyone's using chemicals around Vrindavan. And if the more chemicals you use, the more your soil dies, and everything goes down. Your economy will go down, your health will go down, your mental health decreases, and then you end up with a lot of ill people.
It's maybe this is just my speculation, but it seems like the world is absorbed in its glamour and its economic success at the moment with the technological advancement, but it's a very passionate society, and it's something that's not sustainable that we're seeing at the moment, with coronavirus and environmental issues and global warming. And, it's like we're getting to that point where it's just kind of starting to burn itself out. And although these things may not seem attractive or, glamorous, it's like if we don't know how to grow food, and if we don't know how to grow food that's beneficial for us, and we don't know how to recycle waste, because so much of the recycling that we do now also is not recycled, actually. We put it in our recycling bin, but you can see on the internet that it's not actually recycled. It's shipped off to, some third world country, or it's
Yeah,
buried or thrown in the ocean, and a small percentage is recycled.
yeah.
So now it may seem like, oh, this is kind of, I don't know, quirky or irrelevant or academic. But I think in the future, this will become like the basis of actual survival, that we actually know how to grow food.
Absolutely right. I mean, permaculture, which is a popular movement around the world, they say think locally, no, think globally, act locally.
Mm.
So that's exactly what our program does. You can think of it on a global scale, but everything's done locally. And it compares greatly to the biodigesters of this country, where people send all this waste. All the council waste is collected in bins on the road, on the curbside, taken to biodigesters, the organic fraction is anyway, and it's processed in there. And they cost millions of pounds, these biodigesters, and they don't produce a product that stops slugs, snails, and caterpillars.
What do they make? What do they do with them?
It's an anaerobic system, and a giant installations, giant circular vats. You see them on farms, and lorries will be coming in with lorry loads of green waste from the city, waste stream like this, and it all goes in. But the point is, there's no Vedic recipe, and it's an anaerobic system, whereas it's completely reversed. The Vedic system was aerobic, dating in China. So all those years ago in King's book, they had giant heaps of compost on the street, right? In the street, in the towns in China. And for security, they'd cover it in mud. They'd cake it in mud so that they could see if anyone had broken into it to steal any. So valuable was the fertilizer at that time, and so effective. So that's how they fed their massive populations, because they had to do that. And that's why that system, the farmers of 40 centuries, was so successful, because they continued farming for 4,000 years or more without a fallow period. Like in the West, everything's so shot to pieces after so many years in a rotation, you have to leave it to fallow, just grow grass, right? Because they've killed the soil, you see. And then the weeds will grow up and they'll recover. And then what do they do then? The next year, they spray all the weeds again. I've seen it time and time again. Spraying weeds is a sign of a failure of an agricultural system. That is the sign of a failure, because you don't know what to do other than apply poison. So we really have to get away from this concept of killing things in agriculture, killing so many things, right? What to speak of the larger animals. Without that sentiment, we've got no spirituality. There's no philosophy, Prabhupada says. So this all works hand in hand, and it all is synonymous with Krishna consciousness, right from the word go. The 8 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. It goes right through. Any one of those processes can take you back to Godhead. So serving the environment, serving the cow alone can take you back to Godhead, because it's so engrossing, it's so encompassing. It absorbs your whole being. Prabhupada says to begin spirituality, you have to appreciate nature in one place. So when you start to think about nature and how it works, everything related to the other, this is wonderful. This is holistic understanding of nature. And the world needs to do this. I mean, Prabhupada said that time will come when they will be coming to our farms in thousands. Are we ready? I've asked sannyasis. No. Kadamba Khan and the Maharaj. No, we're not ready. I've asked so many people. So we should be ready, because it's been 50 years now, and we have to get ready. And I believe that Howard's work is a great stepping stone towards achieving this, because we didn't know how to do this. We don't know. We're still deep plowing in ISKCON, bringing up stones, the shale layer, bringing up more weeds, because you just cut the roots of dot weeds, etc., and bring them to the surface, and you have more weeds. So it isn't a solution, you see. And then in the Vedas, they didn't plow.
Okay, yeah, mention something about this, Prabhu. So Vedically, they didn't plow, supposedly, right? And then one would bring up this point, but Balaram has a plow.
Yeah, but he has a scratch plow. Abhiram, who is one of the main constructors of the Mayapur city, he spoke to me on this, and he said, yes, Balaram's plow was a parabolic ripper. It's a point that goes in and just cracks the crust after the rainy season, right? It's called patpri breaking. So it's not a deep plow. Balaram's been holding his plow for millions of years on display, but it's not a deep plow that turns the soil over. No, it's a very different thing. It's a scratch plow. So therefore, all you need to do, and that's what we have in our wheel hoe. We have for small gardens this hoe that works on a wheel system, which gives you fantastic leverage, and it only cultivates the first inch or two of soil to stop the weeds germinating. Well, to knock out the weeds.
Yeah, that's just to sow into, isn't it? That's just to sow into, isn't it?
That's a what?
Is it not to sow into? You're creating a little trough where you sow the seeds
Well,
into.
you can put on a little furrow making thing to sow into. Yeah, like the scratch plow of India. But we have shares that just knock out the weeds if you've got a lot of weeds.
Mm-hmm.
But with our system, you can soon knock out the weeds to such a degree that there are no weeds. There are very, very little weeds. But some weeds are good because they get knocked down as green manure on the surface. You don't have to sow a green manure crop. It's wonderful. You don't even have to spend the money on that. It's automatically creating its own green manure in this system. So that system is the wheel hoe, which was a Victorian invention. They came up with this thing, and I renovate them and sell them onto projects because they're very rare now. But they are really the answer for the weed problems without using plastic sheeting everywhere, which allows no weeds at all. But then you haven't got your green manure, you see. So you're not getting a solution there in the fertilizer, which green manure is a very good fertilizer. So these old technologies, they're called appropriate technologies. And we had our book in the bookshop in London called the Appropriate Technology Bookshop, and many contributors to there. And we've learned from there many systems like the rocket stove, how to create fuel for the kitchen without cutting any trees. It just works on twigs. And if you've got woods, all woods produce twigs. They drop twigs all the time. So all you do is collect those, keep them dry. And that was developed by a university. You put the twigs into the rocket stove, and they have a lot of oxygen around each twig. So you get a very hot fire, and it's a little tunnel, a little chimney in the rocket stove. So the rocket effect is roaring up, and you get a very hot. We design these stoves out of old paint tins, 25 liter paint tins, and you just put the clay in them, and they'll cook anything you want. Absolutely, we use them in Africa. Absolutely fascinating. No need to cut down trees. So you must have trees to produce the wood, but you don't have to cut them down to produce the fuel.
Amazing.
And that's more effective than biogas. Biogas gives a low pressure, small flame over not a very long distance for cooking. But it is a solution to a massive amount of manure or a massive amount of whatever it is that you're trying to get human waste in India, possibly. But the dry system is far more Vedic and far more clean and far more less lethal. In these biodigesters, they have septic systems in England, the UK. Every few years, somebody falls into one and is overcome by the fumes. and then people go in after and they die too.
Mm.
So no one's ever died falling in a compost heap. So it's a very safe system, and it's much more Vedic. It's a Vedic system.
That's wonderful, Pooh. Thank you. I knew I was going to be amazed by your holistic knowledge. It's so comforting and uplifting. Maybe you can just mention where we can contact you. What is it we can, what products you have? What can we benefit from you? Plug yourself a little bit. Tell us where we can see you on Facebook or online.
Yes, our Facebook page is called Vedic Agriculture, and that's free to join. You just apply and we'll join you up. And our products are listed there through our website, ggi.org.uk. And the links will take you there. You can read all about what we're doing in Africa. We had another village in Zimbabwe just applied this morning for our funding. And there were 1,200 people in desperate food insecurity in Zimbabwe require this system. The funding is there. It's just getting these super rich people to put their money where their mouth is, because one of these systems can go in and feed so many people very simply, sustainably, and you just need the right encouragement to get people, NGOs, to do this. And so we need more marketing, more advocating of this system. That's what we're trying to do with the NGOs. So you can buy the stuff on eBay. All the links are there on the website. It comes out from eBay, which has the cheapest postal system, which is very good. There's a lot of nice reviews from devotees on the eBay page. How it works well for Tulsi too. So Tulsi loves this fertilizer, and we've renovated Tulsi bushes to big blooming bushes, which were seemingly dying. The leaves were dropping off and like that. So it's a very effective material.
Great. So if anybody's out there who's seeing this video or seeing the recording on YouTube, please connect with Radha Krishna Peru and take some time to find out what it is exactly he's doing. One last question, Peru. Why is it that you have volcanic ash in there as well? It seems like, I know that's one of the ingredients of the HH2. It's like, why volcanic ash?
We've brought several sciences together over the 25 years, and I'll just show you this leaflet. Here we are. This is volcanic ash in its breakdown of 72 minerals, right? Now, what food is lacking today, the British government have said the mineral content of Europe's food is practically zero. And if you study books on minerals, you have no...
Oh, a little connection issue here. There always has to be some kind of technical difficulty. Otherwise, it's not a bona fide online event. Radha Krishna, it seems like we've disconnected, not coming back. Oh, we've lost you totally. Okay, I think we should probably finish there. It's been an hour or so. I think you'll agree that was a fascinating interview with Radha Krishna, and he's a wealth of all kinds of knowledge. We're planning to have more interviews with him as well, and to speak about these important topics of how to live sustainably, how to live in a way where we're not destroying the world, polluting the waters, polluting our own minds with food that is not healthy and doesn't have any nutrients in it. And this is just touching the tip of the iceberg, this interview with Radha Krishna. You can see he has so much knowledge. So please check out his website, ggi.org, and you can learn a lot more about this amazing system of sustainable agriculture. Okay, thank you all so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed tonight's interview, and we'll see you again next Friday. Next Friday, we'll be speaking to Krishna Dharma about the topic of, are scriptures relevant, or do we not need them anymore in this time and place that we're in the modern world? Okay, thank you all. See you again next week.